My brain thought you were just going to be like, Mommy Milker's bouncing up and down.
Oh my. Mommy Milker's bouncing up and down. Oh my. Mommy Milker's bouncing up and down. Oh my.
You have good notes. You got good notes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I do have many notes.
Oh.
They're up here on the screen.
Books. 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 Books.
Hello and welcome to Didn't Read It, the podcast that is dressed in breeches. I am your...
Is that a comment about my pants?
It wasn't, but I guess it could be.
I thought you liked my pants.
I did like your pants. They're very cute pants.
Thank you. Go on.
I am your host, Grace Todd, writer, editor, book gremlin, occasional crossdresser, at least by Jacobean standards.
Ha.
And with me this week is bestie of the pod, Lee.
Oh.
Hi, baby.
Hi.
Welcome back to season 2.
Thank you. Happy season 2.
Happy season 2 to us all.
It's very exciting.
It's September. We're about to embark on our second false fall.
Fall. Fall.
Fall.
My brain just
Fall.
my brain just reset.
Fall.
I was like, what is a falls fall? I'm a girl's girl.
I'm a real falls fall.
But I'm not a falls fall. But I want to be part of this conversation.
What would a falls fall be?
Oh, you know, spooky, cozy.
Wearing a flannel.
Yeah.
Trying to dunk on the other falls for not being autumnal enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in the 60s and 50s every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just being like, oh, you went up into the 70s?
Oh.
That's interesting.
I mean, that's
nice for you.
That's fine for some seasons, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some real spring behavior, but
yeah.
Well, let's see.
What are we talking about?
What are we talking
What's happening? I'm sorry. Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you.
Yes.
I don't know, anything of note you'd like to share?
No, you know, I've read some books that weren't that good recently. And, you know, it's just interesting to do that. To, like, have the capacity to not... I guess I used to think that everything I read was like, well, this must be good. And, like, well, they published it, so it must be good. And I guess it's fun to have, like, a bit of opinion. And
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
You
actually
shouldn't have put a microphone in front of me today.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
It turns out that a lot of things that are published are bad, actually.
Yeah. But I find it satisfying, even if, like, reading the story itself was not satisfying, I found it satisfying to, like, articulate what I did and did not enjoy about it.
Yeah.
You know, and the authors were no, but so that's been interesting. And then I have a new book that I'm excited to read.
Oh, what is it?
I don't remember the title, but the author is Kazuo Ishiguro, who I've read before.
Didn't he write The Remains of the Day, which I read just
Yeah.
recently? Yeah.
I haven't read that one.
It's very good. I enjoyed it very much.
Well, that's not the one I'm going to read.
Oh, well, that's okay.
I don't want to talk about that one.
Well, fine. My friend Sean mailed that to me.
Yeah.
Like, we were chatting and he, like, recommended the book and I was like, oh yeah, I'll definitely check that out. And then he just went online, found a used copy and had it shipped to my house.
And he's like a Nobel Prize winner. Nobel.
Right. But also just, like, the bar is set so high now because at this point I'm like, do not recommend a book to me.
Oh. If you're not going to mail it to me.
Unless you're just going to provide me with a copy.
Yeah. I feel similarly.
Similarly, if you want me to watch a movie or a television show, I'm pretty sure the only way to make that happen is to come over to my house and physically sit next to me.
Yeah.
And make me watch it. But I'm going to fight it like a dog being given a pill because I also don't like watching television with other people.
Yeah. I watch like one show.
Just, you're going to attempt to force feed me episodes of like Our Flag Means Death, which I'm sure is very good.
Yeah.
But it's just.
It is very good.
You can cover it in peanut butter. You can sit next to me and try, and I'm just going to like, blah, 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 blah. Now.
Here comes the content.
Like, but you love homoerotic pirates. Well, you brought up the question over whether I was making fun of your trousers in the intro.
Well, because not 15 minutes ago you complimented me on my trousers. And
then,
I believed you. I didn't expect to sit down and fight today.
Well, you'll be happy to know that despite the complete lack of evidence to the contrary, that intro was not about you.
Oh. Well, I'm not as interested now. All right, fine. What's it about?
The breeches that I referenced in the intro are on the body of one Moll Cutpurse.
What words did you just say? Moll Cutpurse.
Moll Cutpurse.
What a name.
Who is the protagonist
Okay.
of a play from 1611
1611.
called The Roaring Girl, which is what we are going to discuss today.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of The Roaring Girl?
No, I didn't. I don't know why I'm so surprised. I didn't expect to read something from so long ago today.
Yeah. So this is a cross-dressing farcical rom-com
Oh no.
from 1611.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
By Thomas Middleton and Thomas Dekker.
The Toms.
The Toms.
And they were roommates.
The Toms who were, I did a little
Friends.
bit of Googling because I was like, were either of them
Mm-hmm.
playwrights?
Artists.
There was no speculation on that front that I could find. But
The speculation starts now.
the speculation starts today.
Yeah.
But they were both successful playwrights independently,
Okay.
and they collaborated a couple of times on plays like this, which are called city comedies.
Okay.
They were written to be performed in London. They were usually about London. So they were
Okay.
called city comedies because they were kind of the sitcoms of their day
Oh.
in a way. Like they're meant to kind of reflect you back at you.
Yeah.
As
Alright.
opposed to using Shakespeare as the easiest comparison, a lot of his plays were histories, or they were kind of intentionally placeless, or they were set somewhere very far away.
Yeah.
City comedies were much more like your standard rom-com or Hallmark movie. They take place kind of here and now.
Yeah. I get it. Okay. Cool.
Especially this one, because the titular roaring girl,
Moll Cutpurse.
Moll Cutpurse,
Moll Cutpurse.
was a real person
Oh.
living in London.
Named that.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay.
When the play came out.
These guys were gay. That's bitchy. Did she come? Sorry. Did she come from like a family of thieves or something? Is that why her last name was Cutpurse?
Moll Cutpurse was a nickname.
Oh, okay.
Her real name was Mary Frith.
Okay.
She was a thief,
All right.
at least at points. She had committed thievery,
Haven't we all?
and she had been an actual cutpurse and was
Okay.
arrested for it a couple of times, thus earning the name.
Yes.
And Moll is an informal nickname for Mary.
So the captain in Firefly's name is Mary.
Wait, that's his name?
Canonically, I think they say Mal, but yeah.
Mal.
Yeah.
This is Moll, not Mal.
Okay.
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Okay. So it really is Moll.
Moll.
Okay.
Moll Cutpurse, a.k.a. Mary Frith.
Mary Frith.
So what I think we're going to do is go through the play and the fictional the fictional Moll Cutpurse.
Yeah.
And then I will tell you a bit about the real Mary Frith once we're done.
This sounds sassy,
It's going to be.
and I'm excited.
Good. If I hand you the frontispiece for the published version of the play, do you think you could describe Moll for the audience here?
She looks like a dude.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's a person wearing a lot of clothes. Vaguely, you said this was Elizabethan times?
Jacobean.
Jacobean. I would say traditional Jacobean male dress with like fancy little shoes and tights about her well-formed calves.
Mm-hmm.
The English loved calves.
Oh, yes.
They loved calves.
There are calf jokes in this play.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
well, there you go.
Thanks for the foreshadowing.
Hers are looking good. Breeches?
Yeah.
Big jacket with some sort of cape or scarf about it. She has, I'm not sure if it's a sword, maybe a sword or a large stick. You know, the foofy collar. Don't really see a feminine don't really see a hairstyle at all. Big hat, and then she's smoking a pipe.
Hell yeah.
So if you show me this picture, I'd be like, look at that guy.
Look at that dude.
Look at that bruh.
So, The Roaring Girl.
The Roaring Girl.
So the play was first performed in 1611, and then in the same year was published in print for people to, take and read at home. And that was the frontispiece that I just showed you.
Yeah.
In the printed version, there is a little introduction, which mostly is just the writers kind of being like, don't be mad at us if you don't think that this is true.
Subtweet Moll.
And there's not much to it. It's not terribly interesting, but what it amounts to is basically like the fashion of playmaking I can properly compare to nothing so naturally as the alteration in apparel. The fashion in plays change the way that the fashion in clothes do. This might not be to your taste by the time you read it, and for that, all I can say is that we did our best, essentially.
Okay.
It was apparently standard for plays to open and close with what amounted to an apology.
Okay. It's just a joke. We're just joking.
Not even that kind of an apology. It's more like, if you hated the play, we're sorry. We did our best.
That's so funny.
I kept thinking as I was reading it, can you imagine if movies did that now?
Yeah.
If
some of them should.
The opening credits of every film was just like,
sorry. 20th Century Fox, we're sorry.
And so the introduction to the printed version is basically just a secondary additional kind of caveat. But the play itself opens with a prologue that is also kind of an apology.
How many in a row do we have now?
Just the two.
Okay.
This one's a little more catty.
Okay.
So the first lines are, a play expected long makes the audience look for wonders that each scene should be a book, composed to all perfection. Each one comes and brings a play in his head with him, up he sums, what he would of a roaring girl have writ. If that he finds not here, he muse at it.
Which means,
essentially,
if it doesn't live up to his expectations,
that the audience has been anticipating this play for so long that by the time they show up, they've already decided in their head what it's going to be like. Like, everyone has decided what their own Roaring Girl play would be.
Yeah.
And if that's not what he gets, he complains. He mews at it, which is
a
Jacobean sort of meh.
Yeah.
He then kind of goes on to list the different kinds of roaring girl that this play could be about. So a roaring boy was a sort of slang term for a kind of drunk, hard partying, urban young man.
Yeah.
So a roaring girl
is a hoe.
is a drunk, hard partying, urban young woman.
An it girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, in this era, even the you'd hear a roaring girl and be like, what?
Oh my.
They can't do that.
I mean, I think that's why I was so surprised that you said this when you first said this play was from 1611, because I saw the title and I was like, oh, this is like your brain just goes to the 20s.
Yeah.
The 1920s.
The roaring 20s.
Not the 1620s.
No.
I just didn't expect the term roaring. Although I guess we use the phrase roaring drunk to get roaring drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just don't know.
I think the answer here is that all of the 20s are roaring.
Yeah, especially these ones.
Forward and backward in time. 1620s, 1820s,
oh yeah,
1720s,
woo,
1920s.
Don't get me started.
2020s.
They're great.
1220s.
Oh yeah.
1420s.
Also 1520s.
Also the 50. Yeah,
that was the one we didn't say.
Well, then we do the 1120s.
Well, we can. Okay.
The 20s.
Yes. The original 20s.
The 20s.
Yeah.
20 BC.
Keep on going.
How far can I run a bit into the ground? Okay. So Middleton and Dekker go on to list a sort of very quick subgenre of the roaring girl.
Okay.
The roaring girls that they could be portraying.
This is helpful.
Yeah. So we've got, one is she that roars at midnight in deep tavern bowls, that beats the watch and constables controls. Another roars in the daytime, swears, stabs, gives braves, yet sells her soul to the lust of fools and slaves. Both of these are suburb roarers. Then there's besides a civil city roaring girl whose pride, feasting and riding, shakes her husband's state and leaves him roaring through an iron gate.
I kind of got some of those.
The first roaring girl is a drunk, basically.
Uh-huh.
The second roaring girl is a sex worker of some kind, presumably. And they're both in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And the important context here is that the brothels were in the suburbs outside of London. At least the allowed ones.
Yeah.
And then you've got the civil city roaring girl.
Yeah.
Who is married and is clearly exhausting her husband.
Yeah, the Iron Gates is like, she's in jail and her husband's like, not again.
She has impoverished her husband and now he's in debtor's prison.
Oh, he's in jail.
Yeah.
Slay.
Women's rights and women's wrongs.
I know. Well done, girl.
But those are not the roaring girls of this play.
Oh, okay.
None of these roaring girls is ours. She flies with wings more lofty, thus her character lies. Yet what need characters when to give a guess is better than the person to express? But would you know who 'tis? Would you hear her name? She is called Mad Moll. Her life our acts proclaim.
I'm just imagining being Mary Frith and like, oh, I think I'll go see this play. And then she gets to that part, she's like, what is happening?
She's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
So that is the prologue.
Yeah.
As a little bit of a bait and switch, the first scene actually opens with a different Mary.
Mhm.
Mary Fitzallard.
That girl.
Yeah, that girl.
Mary Fitzallard.
Who enters the stage disguised as a seamstress. She's in a noble house.
Yeah.
And she's intercepted by a servant who sort of asks what she's doing. She says that she has come to see Sir Alexander's son about some bands that he ordered from her.
Yeah.
Sort of in the first comic bit of the play, the servant speaks with overly affected, slightly misused fancy language.
Yeah.
His name is Neatfoot. You know,
He's trying.
I will, fairest tree of generation, watch when our young master is erected, that is to say, up, and deliver him to this your most white hand. And he keeps calling her, like, your chastity.
Okay.
But he scurries off
Yeah.
to get Sir Alexander's son. And Mary takes the moment to look at look at the audience, essentially.
Be like, I'm in disguise. I'm not a seamstress.
Kind of, yeah. She tells the audience that she wishes she could smile at how absurd Neatfoot is. But in my breast a poisoned arrow sticks, and smiles cannot become me. Love woven slightly, such as thy false heart makes, wears out as lightly. But love being truly bred in the soul like mine, bleeds even to death at the least wound it takes. The more we quench this fire, the less it slakes.
So she's got a bad.
She's sad because of love.
Okay. Presumably with Sir Alexander's son.
Uh-huh.
Who does not have his own name.
Sebastian.
So, Sebastian.
Sebastian, whose name we find out when he enters momentarily.
Okay.
And here he is. Sebastian has arrived.
Sebastian, who broke her heart, maybe.
Sebastian, who is on the verge of breaking her heart.
Okay.
And she has showed up in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
And a through line of this entire play that we're going to have to pause and address right now is that Elizabethan and Jacobean plays, comedies, specifically, rely on no one being able to recognize anyone if they change their outfit.
That is what I thought you were going to say. It's like the classic, like, eyeglasses and mustache. And just like, or like the hot girl who wears a pair of glasses and puts her hair up. And it's like, who's that? You know?
Does not matter how well they know each other. You put on a different hat and you are a whole new person.
It's like, hey, I'm Sebastian. Nice to meet you.
Pretty much.
And then you take off your hat and it's like,
yeah, so Sebastian walks in and he's just like, what do you want with me, Miss Seamstress?
Yeah.
And she's like, it's me. And he's like, Mary, the woman I love. And we find out this. So Sebastian and Mary were promised to each other bindingly. They consider themselves, almost as good as married.
Yeah.
They have been betrothed for a long time. They genuinely love each other.
Okay.
Sebastian's father, Sir Alexander, almost as soon as they were betrothed.
Seriously betrothed.
I'm seriously betrothed,
like,
babe.
So betrothed right now.
Sir Alexander decided almost immediately that her father, Sir Guy Fitzallard, didn't have enough money. Basically, like, she didn't bring enough money to this marriage.
Yeah,
because
the dowry.
Sir Alexander is obsessed with money. It's not even that she doesn't bring money. It's just not enough. He like, almost immediately was like, ooh, you know what? I could probably do better.
Yeah.
He's
greedy.
And so he has forbidden Sebastian from marrying her.
Mm-hmm.
They are
Boo.
distraught
Yeah.
by this.
Equally distraught.
She has snuck into his house basically to say, are you going to abandon me? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And he's like, I have a plan. I have a plan that I'm already undertaking.
Ooh.
I am convincing my father that I am in love with somebody else who is so offensive
Okay.
as a choice of wife
Uh-huh.
that by the time I come around again,
Yeah.
he'll be so grateful
I'll be like, oh, thank God.
that he'll let me marry anybody I want,
Yeah.
as long as it's not this person.
Yeah.
And he says, there's a wench called Moll, Mad Moll, or Mary Moll, a creature so strange in quality, a whole city takes note of her name and person. All that affection I owe to thee, on her, in counterfeit passion, I spend to mad my father. He believes I dote upon this roaring girl, and grieves as it becomes a father for a son that could be so bewitched. Yet I'll go on this crooked way, sigh still for her, feign dreams in which I'll talk only of her. So,
Ouch.
yeah, burn.
Yeah.
So he's going to pretend to be hopelessly in love with
Yeah.
Moll Cutpurse.
This feels like the setup to like a 90s or Y2K teen movie
Yes.
where we're going to get a nerdy girl makeover.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not going to get a nerdy girl makeover,
No.
but this does feel like that
It
setup.
does feel like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the first scene.
Yeah.
This is what sets the whole plot in motion.
Uh-huh.
This is the whole goal, is to get these two people married.
Yeah.
The second scene opens with Sir Alexander Wengrave,
Being like, money, 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 money,
his
money.
father, with sort of a group of his gentleman friends.
Uh-huh. Boys' night.
Dudes being dudes.
Yeah.
A lot of this play is dudes being dudes.
Okay.
And they all come in together and they're just kind of
Broing down.
broing down,
Yeah.
making jokes at each other's expense.
Uh-huh.
Because this is a farce of this era, all of their names are puns,
Oh.
right? So we have Sir Davy Dapper because, he's dapper.
Yeah.
And
Is that a pun or is it simply descriptive?
I guess it's both. Yeah.
I was like, is it because he's fugly?
I guess it's not really a pun. We have Sir Davy Dapper, whose son Jack Dapper is
Yeah.
like a foppish wastrel.
Ah.
And then we have Gosh Hawk, who is bird-like and grasping.
Oh.
And then we have
Oh.
Laxton, whose name is a pun that means that he has no testicles.
Oh, my.
Laxstone. Yeah, get it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Is he okay?
He doesn't have balls.
All right. Oh, not like medically.
Not medically.
Yeah.
Metaphorically.
Personality-wise.
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah. Metaphorically.
All right.
But there's a joke very early on where Sir Alexander is telling his servants to get everybody a chair. And he says, furnish Mr. Laxton with what he wants. A stone. A stool, I would say. A stool. And Laxton just says, I would rather stand, sir.
I'm fine.
So they're all broing down, and there's a cute little aside at the beginning where he's sort of showing them around his house, and he says he directs their attention to his portrait gallery, which is the audience.
Oh.
And it's kind of fun, just as like a quick aside. He says, when you look into my galleries, how bravely they are trimmed up, you all shall swear you're highly pleased to see what's set down there. Stories of men and women mixed together, fair ones with foul, like sunshine in wet weather. Within one square 1,000 heads are laid, so close that all of heads the room seems made. As many faces there filled with blithe looks, show like the promising titles of new books.
That's cute.
I know, isn't that charming?
Yeah.
Wish more plays would do that. Bring it back.
He's like, look at this audience. Some of them are uggos. Some of them are hot.
Yeah, and then
They're all there together.
and then further down, he's like, some of them are pickpockets.
Okay. Not naming names,
Not
except that the whole play is we
Yeah.
are naming a name.
So the bros all get together. They all sit down. We get some. Again, this is a farce, so there's a joke a minute in
Yeah.
the text, and I don't have the time for all of them.
Gotcha.
So just assume that there's some kind of sex pun every 45 seconds or so
Okay.
for most of the play.
And they're hilarious.
I'll draw out the ones that I think are worth noting, but I can't do them all.
Right.
Write to your local theater company, ask them to put the play on, and then you can get all of the sex jokes.
All the jokes.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Although, again, it does lead to my favorite footnotes, where it's just like every single footnote is like a testicle.
Asterisk. Vagina.
a penis.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he gets all of these men sitting down, and he starts telling them a story to pass the time of an old man that he met who was weeping alone. And he was like, "What's wrong?" And the old man was like, "My son is failing me,
Oh.
and he's ruining my life.
What could this story be about?
And that man is definitely not me."
No. This is just a story I am making up.
There is one bit where he's saying that the old man proclaims himself to have never been sickened by avarice, and one of the men is like, "Well, he can't mean himself." But he does. He does. And Sebastian has sidled back into the room at this point.
He's like, "What are you guys talking about?"
Sir Alexander is going on and on about how his son is ruining his life by falling in love with this horrible, horrible woman.
Yeah.
And Sebastian does the thing where he kind of looks at the audience and is like, "That's my cue."
Wink.
And then like jumps up and is like, "How dare you speak of her this way?
Yeah.
She's wonderful."
Daddy, I love her.
Very much so. Father and son finally get into it, and there's this back and forth. One of the other men in the room basically says, "Well, I thought your son was engaged to Guy Fitzallard's daughter." And Sir Alexander says, "I have upon my knees wooed this fond boy to take that virtuous maiden." And Sebastian responds, "Hark you a word, sir. You on your knees have cursed that virtuous maiden, and me for loving her. Yet do you now thus baffle me to my face? Wear not your knees in such entreats. Give me Fitzallard's daughter." And Sir Alexander says, "I'll give thee ratsbane, rather."
Oh, my.
And Sebastian concludes, "Well, then you know what dish I mean to feed upon." So, Sir Alexander is claiming to be at the absolute, at the end of his wits.
Yeah.
But
he's still not ready to go back and say you can marry the first Mary.
correct.
Yeah.
He wants to have it both ways.
Yeah.
And so Sebastian then goes on to basically say, like, I'm deaf to all of your pleadings.
Yeah.
I'm smitten. I love Moll, and I'll love no one but Moll.
Yeah.
And he storms off.
Dedication to the bit.
The bros filter out.
Uh-huh.
And Sir Alexander meets with a man named Trapdoor.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he does.
Who is presenting himself as like a discharged soldier,
Uh-huh.
but is very clearly just a criminal.
Just a guy. Yeah, okay.
He's just a criminal. And Sir Alexander asks if he can be secret, and he says, "As two crafty attorneys plotting the undoing of their clients."
Oh.
Because everyone loves a lawyer joke.
Yeah.
Sir Alexander has hired Trapdoor, to go entrap Moll Cutpurse. This is his idea, is he's hired this criminal, basically, and he's like, "Go get yourself hired as her manservant, whatever, and then between us, we'll figure out how to entrap her
Yeah.
and get her arrested and preferably hanged."
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that she can't marry my son.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of the historical context, right? So he's nobility, and he is cynically exploiting the law to entrap someone that he has a problem with.
Yeah.
And this is bad.
Yes, it is.
Both from our perspective and from the perspective of the play.
Yeah.
He's being a bad dude.
He's the villain.
He is the villain.
Okay.
Well, Trapdoor is also one of the villains.
Well, but, I suppose with a name like Trapdoor, we saw that coming.
So this is our A plot. Sebastian wants to marry Mary.
Uh-huh.
Sir Alexander is attempting to get Moll arrested and preferably hanged.
Yeah.
And
Trapdoor's doing crime.
Trapdoor's doing crime.
Yeah.
Now we get the introduction of our B plot, which we will not spend that much time on,
Okay.
but it exists.
All right.
And it's a bunch of horny wives.
Are they the wives of the bros?
They are the wives of merchants.
Okay, so they're just some ladies.
These are just some ladies.
All right.
It all intertwines.
Okay.
The B plot centers on 3 couples.
Yeah.
Open Work, Tilt Yard,
These sound like apps.
and Gallipot.
These sound like shitty apps.
Uh-huh. So Open
Okay.
Work is a seamster and seamstress, right? Married couple.
All right.
Tilt Yard are feather sellers because you wear feathers to joust,
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. And then Mr. and Mrs. Gallipot are apothecaries and tobacconists.
That one's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're only known as their last names. It's just Mr. and Mrs. Gallipot, Tiltyard, and Openwork.
Sure.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. I am here with you.
Goshawk and Laxton.
Stop it.
You're going to have to get used to it. We have so much play to get through.
All right.
So Goshawk and Laxton have arrived.
Those were guys. Those were bros. We already heard those names.
Yeah, those were the
Okay.
bros.
Got it. Got it.
Goshawk and Laxton are unlanded nobility, which was kind of a thing in this era and becoming sort of a source of, on the downer side, they were the source of some consternation. You had noblemen running around who had sold off all of their actual land for the money. And this was considered a problem because it left them sort of unmoored. They didn't have responsibilities.
Yeah, just a lot of money.
They're just rich playboys with no responsibilities, except also a lot of them are no longer rich.
Yeah, I was
because
about to say.
turns out when you sell your land
Yeah.
for a short-term payout,
And then you live a playboy lifestyle.
you don't get to keep making money from the land. That's how feudalism works.
Yes.
You have to have the land
Yes.
to make money
Milk.
from. Yeah.
Yeah.
These young men are unmoored
Oh, and they're young.
nobility.
Okay.
They're playboys.
Blech. Okay.
And so Goshawk and Laxton roll up on this row of stores, and
Bird boy and no balls.
Bird Boy and No Balls
Okay.
roll up on the tobacconist's wife,
Yes.
and Mrs. Gallipot fills them each a pipe
Right.
and then goes to light it in the fire. The lines are, Laxton says, "The pipe's in a good hand, and I wish mine always so."
Oh,
Uh-huh. Get it? It's penis.
it is a penis.
Uh-huh.
He wants a hand job.
And then Greenwit says, "But not to be used in that fashion."
Don't light my penis on fire.
Uh-huh. And then Laxton says, "Oh, pardon me, sir. I understand no French," which is a syphilis joke.
Oh.
Yeah. His penis is on fire. Syphilis.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Does she hear them?
She does. I don't think it matters.
Okay.
But she brings the pipe back, and he compliments her. And this is when we find out something is going on, because she's basically like, "Cool it.
Oh.
Don't be so friendly in public. You're going to get us in trouble."
Which one?
Gallipot.
Gallop. No.
Mrs. Gallipot.
Miss Gallipot. But which one was
Laxton.
Laxton?
So Laxton
He does have balls after all.
Laxton is pursuing Mrs. Gallipot,
All right.
except that he's not actually.
He's just flirting with her a lot?
He's getting money out of her.
Oh, girl.
He has been seducing her
Uh-huh.
for money, but not actually having sex with her. And the frustration, the thing,
I mean, that takes game.
he's stringing her along
Yeah.
with the promise of sex
Mm-hmm.
to get money from her.
Tale as old as time.
But he doesn't actually want to have sex with her, probably.
yeah.
Goshawk, meanwhile,
Just pecking at some seeds in the corner.
he's going after Mrs. Openwork.
Whose job is to
Sew things.
sew things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a reference to like lace work.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Basically, Laxton is flirting. They're just all hanging out.
They're
Like
just being horny.
it's all these stores in a row.
yeah.
And the scene kind of just bounces between them. So at the same time, we meet Jack Dapper, who is Davy Dapper's son.
Right.
Who is
Another one of the bros.
Yeah.
This is his son.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a fop, and he's out shopping for feathers
At the feather vendors.
at the tilt yards. Yes.
Ah. And a fop just means like a fancy boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
A fancy. He cares too much about clothes.
Yeah.
He's so fancy,
Yeah.
and he's spending all his money on being fancy.
I mean, you can't take it with you.
And so they're all just kind of rattling around
Yeah.
these shops, hitting on people's wives.
Just bros who brunch, you know?
And then Moll appears.
And what is she like?
She is dressed as a man.
Oh, okay.
So that is
Cool.
everyone's chief complaint about Moll Cutpurse is
Yeah.
that she exclusively dresses in men's clothes. Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Bummer.
And she's bros with a lot of the bros.
But they make fun of her.
Well,
Oh,
we'll see.
okay.
Moll comes in. She's got her sword. She's wearing like a men's a man's doublet and breeches.
Yeah.
And she's clearly buddies with
What are-
Goshawk.
What are her calves doing?
Her calves
Ooh,
they're good.
shapely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strong.
Well, it's funny you should say that because Goshawk flags her down and is like, come smoke a pipe with us. And she's like, I can't linger. I have to go buy a ruff because she's big. She's into the big ruffed collars.
The neck
which
ornaments.
everyone loves.
Yeah.
And Laxton,
Hot.
in an aside to the audience, says, Heart, I would give but too much money to be nibbling with that wench. Life, she has the spirit of 4 great parishes, and a voice that will drown all the city. Such Moll were a marrowbone before an Italian. He would cry Bonaroba till his ribs were nothing but bone. I'll lay hard siege to her.
So he's into her.
Well, so the one thing that everyone can agree on in this play, and I was surprised by this, is that Moll being dressed as a dude, actually women being dressed as dudes generally, is hot as fuck.
That's, yeah.
Just a massive turn on.
Yeah.
Like,
That is what that sounded like.
we can argue all day about whether women being dressed in men's clothing is moral, but what no one is arguing is that it is sexy.
Yeah.
Just
Agreed.
just men right and left are just like, God, she's so hot.
Yeah. That is interesting. That is unexpected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Laxton sees her and he's like, I
He's like, yeah.
gotta have it.
Yeah.
Got to have it.
Yeah.
But she blows him off for now because she's off to go shopping. And as she moves sort of to the other end of the stage, there's a bit of joking about her, basically.
Uh-huh.
Goshawk calls her the maddest, fantasticalest girl. I never knew so much flesh and so much nimbleness put together. And Mrs. Gallipot says, some will not stick to say she's a man, and some both man and woman.
Mm.
And Laxton responds, that were excellent. She might first cuckold the husband, and then make him do as much for the wife.
This is freaky.
Uh-huh.
Ooh.
They are openly speculating about whether she is actually a woman,
Yeah.
a man and a woman,
Yeah.
whether she has sex with women,
Yeah.
whether she has sex with men,
Yeah.
or both.
And they're all just like foaming at the mouth.
Kinda, yeah.
And like, you can do it to me. I volunteer. Moll.
I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And so Moll is moving down and she gets to the Tilt Yard's shop, which is where we see the first person who doesn't like her.
The feathers.
The feathers.
Yeah.
Mrs. Tiltyard, not a fan.
Oh.
We never really learn why, though. She just kind of screams at her.
Turf.
We also run into Jack Dapper, who is still shopping for feathers.
Yeah.
He says that he'll be there for like another hour. She says, essentially, if a feather holds you in place a whole hour, a goose will last you all the days of your life.
That's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I fucked up. It's not Tiltyard. It's Mrs. Openwork. Mrs. Openwork does not like Moll.
The seamstress
The seamstress.
does not like Moll.
Moll rolls up on the seamstress's shop looking for a nice rough collar, and Mrs. Openwork essentially accuses her of being a sex worker.
Oh.
Yeah,
They need seams sewn as well.
that is true, but what Moll is emphatically not, and one of the things that makes her genuinely angry through the plays, she is not a sex worker, and she's
Yeah.
very, very adamant about this fact.
Okay.
Now, this is in part because in Elizabethan and Jacobean England, it was pretty common for sex workers to wear articles of men's clothing or
Interesting.
to dress as men. Because,
Okay.
again, what we can all agree on is that is hot.
Yeah. No one is disputing how fucking universally sexy that is.
Like, literally no one.
All right.
We love a man, like, we love a woman in breeches. However, this is causing a bit of a pickle for Moll herself because
Yeah.
she's like, no, I am not a sex worker. In fact, I'm not having sex with anybody at all.
Yeah. I just like these clothes.
Yes,
Yeah.
essentially.
Okay.
So they get into a fight, or they start to get into a fight. And this interesting thing happens where Moll bridles when Openwork is a bitch to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she more or less turns around and calls her a whore.
Yeah. Classic.
But she pretty immediately, and even in the play, like even in the text, it feels like a displacement, because what happens is a guy rolls in
Mm-hmm.
and she picks a fight with him.
Okay.
it feels like she's pulling kind of a gentleman's thing. And she more or less says, like, I wish you were a man because I'd teach you a lesson,
Yeah.
but you're not.
Yeah.
And then she, like, catches sight of a guy off to one side and she's
She's like, you come here.
basically, yeah.
I'm going to destroy you.
Yes, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
You pissed me off the other night. And he's like, I don't.
What did I do?
He says, not I by this light. And she says, no, but by candlelight you did. And then she fights, like literally fights him with a sword
Okay.
and chases him off.
Yeah. She angy.
And good with a sword.
Okay. She is sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get some sword play. She beats this poor random dude.
Yeah.
He scurries off. And Laxton, who should be at her shoulder then?
Laxton, the guy who's extra horny for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And has no testicles.
Right.
He rolls up and is basically like, says,
Excuse me.
gallantly performed, Moll, and manfully. I love thee forever for it. Had he offered but the least counterbuff, by this hand I was prepared for him.
I would have taken him.
And Moll says, you prepared for him? Why should you be prepared for him? Was he any more than a man?
I don't get. What does that mean?
What part exactly did you think you were going to play in any of that scenario?
Yeah.
This had nothing to do with you. Are you implying that I couldn't have beaten him on my own?
Yeah. Okay.
And he's like, no,
That's not what I said. That's not what I meant.
pretty much.
You're so hot. That's not what I meant.
And he pivots to he does the thing where he's like, that's not what I meant. Anyway, when are you and I going to go out of town together?
Shameless.
And she's like, where? To Tyburn, which is where they hanged people.
Oh.
And he's like, haha, that's out of town indeed. No, I meant like somewhere where we can go have sex.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
And he offers her the money that he just got from Mrs. Gallipot.
Hey.
Uh-huh. Because he is assuming that he can pay her to have sex with him.
Okay.
And she's like, name a place and a time. I'll take your money. Fine.
He's like, awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
It's exactly how I thought this would go.
And so they set a date and a time, and he scampers off.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get a quick aside of Mr. Open Work complaining to Goshawk that his wife is so mean to him that he has to go out into the suburbs to sleep with sex workers.
Yeah.
Because she's so mean.
Is she the one who doesn't like Moll?
Yes.
Okay.
He's like, my wife is such a bitch that I have to go have sex with women in the suburbs. And Goshawk is like, T.
You poor thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to there's a bunch of like what amounts to rapid cuts in this. I don't know how they would have staged it, if they would have had just people standing in clumps and then they would have kind of moved forward.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Because then we jump back to Jack Dapper and Moll, and they're clearly friends.
Okay.
And Moll gives a little bit of a speech about how women's honor, which is kind of constantly being questioned both in this play and in society at large,
Mm-hmm.
is never being really tried. Like, how do I put this? What she's complaining about, she says, oh, the gallants of these times are shallow lechers. They put not their courtship home enough to a wench. It is impossible to know what woman is thoroughly honest because she's never thoroughly tried. I am of that certain belief that there are more queens in this town of their own making than of any man's provoking. Women are courted but never soundly tried, as many walk in spurs that never ride. She's doing a commentary on the two attempted adulteries happening here, right? Because we've got Mrs. Gallipot, who's trying to have sex with Laxton, even though Laxton's trying to have sex with Moll.
Yeah.
We have Goshawk, who is trying to have sex with Mrs. Openwork, while Mr. Openwork, we think, is going off into the suburbs to have sex with sex workers.
Yeah.
And what she is saying, basically, is that none of these men are actually manly enough to do an adultery.
Okay. Okay.
And that you can't know which women are honest because women, when she says women are never thoroughly tried, what she basically means is men might flirt with them or hit on them, but they lack the stones to follow through and actually have sex with them. And on top of that, their husbands aren't satisfying them either.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So all around disappointments.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically what we have are a bunch of wildly horny women and
Yeah.
a bunch of very useless men.
Yeah.
And so when she says, women are courted but never soundly tried, as many walk in spurs that never ride.
Ride.
Yes.
Sex.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get the joke.
Yeah. They're not getting
Yes. No one.
Okay.
None of these women are getting f***ed adequately.
Yeah. I volunteer. Excuse me.
Hi. Can I help? And that commentary is even more interesting because there is a scene coming up where they 100% make a joke about Moll having some kind of strap-on
Yeah.
arrangement.
Yes.
So,
I mean, it's what the people want.
you know,
Yeah. Moll and Jack Dapper to me seem like the butch and femme besties.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're out there, please send me your Moll Cutpurse Jack Dapper fan art.
Ooh.
Anyway, so again, we're hopping around. Goshawk has scurried from Mr. Openwork complaining to Mrs. Openwork, and now he's basically like whispering in her ear, being like, "Your husband's having sex with sex workers
Yeah.
in the suburbs."
So you should have sex with me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is very much what is happening.
Okay.
And then I guess because there's one comment about it and then it's never mentioned again, is that Mistress Tiltyard in the feather shop,
Uh-huh.
apparently an ice queen.
Wow.
Because all we get is Moll, who is still standing in the feather shop, says, "I'll try one spear against your chastity, Mistress Tiltyard, though it prove too short by the burr."
Not even sexy Moll.
Not even sexy
Not
Moll.
even sexy Moll.
She's like, I
Get the feather lady.
I could try it, but I don't think it's gonna work.
I mean,
We had to have
asexual
one,
representation.
honestly.
Yeah.
So that's the setup of our B plot.
Okay. I'm following.
How we doing so far?
I think I got it.
Trapdoor turns up
Ooh.
and tries to convince Moll to hire him.
For trickery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's basically like, "You're so cool,"
Yeah.
and she trips him.
Nice.
He starts bragging about his military exploits. He's like, I was definitely a soldier. I'm
Yeah.
very handy with a sword.
I did army.
I did army."
Yeah.
And there's a part where he says that he kept a bridge myself and drove 7 at a time before me, which means what he's trying to say is like, "Oh, I like held a bridge."
During a siege or an attack. Or
Yeah,
something.
like
yeah.
and fought off 7 men at a time.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Really?" And then he, aside to the audience, is like, "But they were cows." She's like, "Yeah, whatever, fine." She tells him to meet her at the same place and time that she's meeting Laxton later.
Okay.
And so she sends him off. And so we get a brief scene of Sebastian talking about his emotions.
Sebastian, yes, because he is in love with the first Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the next important thing that happens is that Sebastian actually proposes to Moll.
Oh my gosh.
Like, for real. I mean, not for real for him, but she
Yeah.
doesn't know.
So to her, it's just this guy just hanging around her being like, "I love you." And she's like, "That's great."
Pretty much.
Okay.
And she's like, "No,
Yeah.
sweetie, no."
Yeah.
And in true farce play style, his father is like standing right there, but no one can see him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Hiding behind a lamppost.
She gives Sebastian a little speech. She says, "I have no humor to marry. I love to lie on both sides of the bed myself.
Mm.
And again, on the other side, a wife, you know, ought to be obedient. But I fear me I am too headstrong to obey. Therefore, I'll never go about it. I love you so well, sir, for your good will. I'd be loath you should repent your bargain after, and therefore will never come together at first. I have the head now of myself, and am man enough for a woman. Marriage is but a chopping and changing, where a maiden loses one head and has a worse in its place."
That's a pretty good speech.
Right?
But it's not like mean.
No.
It's
She's
just-
like, "I like you, bro.
Yeah. She's like, "I'm doing my own thing."
I'm good."
Yeah.
And I
don't want you to regret, like, you're not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. Nobody's going to be happy.
no one's going to have a good time.
Yeah.
And marriage is just like not good, actually.
Yeah.
I love the line of the marriage is but a chopping and changing, where a maiden loses one head and has a worse one in its place.
Yeah.
She loses her virginity and
Yeah.
then has a man put above her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm good, actually."
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's like, no, heart.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, drat.
Can you just pretend, though?
And Sir Alexander at first is like, oh, maybe she's not such a monster after all. Like, she's refusing to marry him. But then he's like, no, she's just drawing it out to, like, make sure he's lured in.
Sure.
And people are just running on and off stage all the time. A tailor pops up as she and Sebastian are still chatting.
A real tailor, not someone in disguise.
A real tailor.
A real tailor.
So Sebastian is still kind of trying to press it, and she keeps being like, no, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
At one point, she's like, stop trying to grab a wife as if you're being sent to Virginia. Like, this is not a rush. You need to calm down.
Hey.
And so the tailor comes to to measure her for her breeches. And Sir Alexander to the audience says, breeches? What? Will he marry a monster with 2 trinkets?
Testicles.
And then we get a really great series of jokes about whether or not Moll has a dick.
Well, maybe she do.
Because apparently she has requested that her breeches be done in the latest fashion, which is called the Great Dutch Slop.
I'd like to be done in that fashion as well, you know? It sounds fun. Sounds like a grand old time.
And the tailor, so they have this exchange. You say you'll have the Great Dutch Slop, Mistress Mary. Why, sir, I say so still. Your breeches then will take up a yard more. Well, pray, look it be put in then. It shall stand round and full, I warrant you. I know my fault now. The other was somewhat stiff between the legs.
Ah, good.
Yeah.
Good
So
stuff.
what they're saying is that her new breeches will be big enough for
For things.
the pun.
Boners.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
All of this is just making Moll more and more attractive.
That's not going to change.
Okay. I am also attracted to Moll.
So, Sir Alexander and Sebastian have another back and forth. Sir Alexander is essentially like, you're going to kill me with all of your shenanigans. Like, you're literally going to do me in. Your poor aged father.
Yeah. You're killing me.
And they go back and forth, and Sir Alexander finally storms off of the stage. And Sebastian...
I thought nobody knew he was there.
I think she leaves, and then they do the thing
he
where...
reveals himself. Aha!
Yeah, they're like, now I'm in the room.
Father! Okay. Sorry. Got it.
Essentially, Sebastian is defending her. Sir Alexander is attacking her. Sir Alexander storms off, and Sebastian tells basically the audience, well, my first gambit failed, but Moll's a good person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go speak to her privately and tell her what we're doing, and I bet she'll be willing to help us.
Should have done that all along.
Right?
Yeah. She's a good bro.
She is a good bro. And so we change scenes.
Okay.
To where Laxton is waiting for Moll.
In the agreed upon place.
In the agreed upon place and time.
Oh boy. I'm ready for some hijinks.
Moll shows up dressed in a different outfit, still dressed as a man, but dressed as a man in such a way that people can't tell she's her suddenly.
Okay. Well, do people just wear one outfit their whole life or something?
I don't know.
All right. So he thinks she's just some guy.
It starts out with her.
And he's like, I'm waiting for this lady I'm going to bone.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Hey, bro, check it out. I'm waiting for this hot lady.
And then he's like, huh, it's you.
Oh, yeah.
And then they have a great confrontation.
Okay.
She starts to take off her cloak.
Oh.
And he's like, no, not here. Not right now. And she draws her sword.
Ah.
Uh-huh. And he's like, are you...
He's like, knife play?
Kind of, yeah.
He's like, okay, I wasn't really... I mean, sure, I can get into it.
He says, will you untruss a point? And he's still, like, he basically still thinks she's getting naked.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you idiot.
I'm going to stab you.
Yeah. And she throws his money back at him and then supplements it with the same amount of money of her own.
Ooh,
and is like,
love it.
Fight me for it.
Yes.
Winner take all.
I would have been like, ugh. That's me.
I think that's
ejaculate.
I think that's more or less what happens.
Yeah.
Because it takes him several lines of,
He's like, hold on. That was so sexy.
He's like, you don't actually want to fight me, do you? And she gives a speech. And I think this is kind of one of her defining speeches of the play.
Okay.
Because she says, you know, draw your sword, or I will serve an execution upon thee that shall lay thee up till doomsday. And he's like, draw upon a woman? And she says, to teach thy base thoughts manners. Thou art one of those that thinks each woman thy fond flexible whore, if she but cast a liberal eye upon thee. Turn back her head, she's thine, or amongst company by chance drink first to thee, then she's quite gone, there's no means to help her. How many of our sex, by such as thou, have their good thoughts paid with a blasted name that never deserved loosely or did trip in path of whoredom beyond cup and lip? But for the stain of conscience and of soul, better had women fall into the hands of an act silent than a bragging nothing. There's no mercy in it. What did move you, sir, to think me whorish? A name which I'd tear out from the High German's throat, if it lay ledger there to dispatch privy slanders against me. In thee I defy all men, their worst hates and their best flatteries, all their golden witchcrafts, which with they entangle the poor spirits of fools. Distressed needlewomen and trade-fallen wives, fish that must needs bite or themselves be bitten, such hungry things as these may soon be took with a worm fastened on a golden hook. Those are the lecher's food, his prey. He watches for quarreling wedlocks and poor shifting sisters. 'Tis the best fish he takes. But why, good fisherman, am I thought meat for you, that never yet had angling rod cast toward me? 'Cause you'll say, I'm given to sport, I'm often merry, jest? Had mirth no kindred in the world but lust? Oh, shame take all her friends then. But however thou and the baser world censure my life, I'll send them word by thee, and write so much upon thy breast, 'cause thou shalt bear it in mind. Tell them 'twere base to yield where I have conquered. I scorn to prostitute myself to a man, I that can prostitute a man to me.
Oh.
And so I greet thee.
I would be like, yes, ma'am.
He draws his sword, and she says, would the spirits of all my slanderers were clasped in thine, that I might vex an army at one time. And then she fucks him up.
That is so badass.
She's so hot.
She's just, I remember this tweet that was like, I am not flirting, I am just hot and talking. that is what her speech basically is.
Yeah, it really is.
Just like, I don't owe you shit.
But it's also a very specific repudiation of him and men like him for the things that they do to women. Like, one of the things that she says is basically like, you misinterpret innocent gestures as attraction, and then you either seduce a woman, or if she refuses to be seduced by you, you ruin her name anyway. Either to avenge yourself, or because you think if you ruin her name anyway, she'll then turn around and have sex with you. She's like, what? It's a massive indictment of specifically these like rich, young, playboy noblemen.
Yeah.
Who are just running around ruining women's lives
Use
for
and
no,
abuse.
for no reason. And what I like about it is that she's not just saying like, couldn't be me, I'm built different.
Yeah.
She's kind of saying like, I'm gonna fuck you up on behalf of myself and also women in general.
Yeah. Love it.
Anyway, she beats the shit out of him.
Nice.
Stabs him pretty badly.
Oochie.
He asks her pardon, and she says sarcastically, but I'm your hired whore, sir.
Wait, he asked her pardon as in, like, how could you do this or something?
No, like, I'm begging, like, please don't kill me.
Oh, got you.
And she's like, but I'm your hired whore.
Yeah.
And then he literally stumbles off, and he's like, I wish I had a surgeon.
That's what you get.
That is what you get.
That's what you get.
And then Trapdoor shows up and also doesn't recognize her.
Like, hey, bro, you seen a hot lady guy? I'm looking for her to do some crime.
She's already got her sword, you know, she's already in a fighting mood.
Yeah.
And he shows up and is like, thinks she's a dude. And
what's up, bro?
She picks a fight with him.
Nice.
To see if he's
trustworthy,
can, you know, stand up for himself.
Yeah.
And he betrays himself as a coward, basically. She's like, let's fight. And he's like,
I only fight cows.
Yeah, exactly. And then she reveals herself and he's like, I knew it was you the whole time.
That's one of my many tricks in the art of war.
I didn't pull my sword because I knew it was you, and I could never pull a sword against you, my lady. I knew you by your wide straddle, as well as if I had been in your belly.
What?
It's a joke about being inside of her.
Okay.
Yeah. But she decides to hire him for...
All right.
I mean, unclear. I think what we are meant to understand is that she is onto him. Keep your enemies.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know what your deal is, but we need to figure this out. So, yeah, come be my servant. It's whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the end of that scene.
Yeah.
Everybody leaves. And then we go back to the Gallipots.
The what's the word? It starts with an A.
Apothecary. Yeah. The apothecary couple.
Uh-huh.
Mrs. Gallipot is getting very fed up with Mr. Gallipot, who is not just not sexually satisfying to her, but, and this is like one of those signs of how much masculinity has changed, I think. She's, well, changed and not changed. She's mad at him because he's too nice to her.
You know, I read that Georgette Heyer book of yours that was the medieval romance, and there was that one character, the friend, her little side plot romance. She wanted to be very like mean, and like she wanted to be dominated, basically.
Yeah,
like not only like sexually or physically, but like emotionally. And she was like a bratty sub, basically. And I'm wondering, I was just like, maybe that was more common.
I think, well, it's very much
It's like power play.
Yes, and the problem is that by loving her so much and by being so nice to her,
Yeah.
from the standards of the time, he's being unforgivably effeminate.
Yeah.
And is incapable of satisfying her sexually.
Good. Healthy.
Yes. And so he's kind of just fluttering around her being like, my pet, my darling, my love. And she's like, I need you to back the fuck.
Yeah. Gross.
She's literally like, let go of my apron strings.
Yeah.
But she is also reading a love letter from Laxton that is asking her for money again.
She's like, now that's a man.
Basically. She's like, oh, alas, poor gentleman, I pity him. He wants 30 pounds, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like a lot of money.
Back then, yeah.
And she and her husband are doing quite well, but she can't just swan off with that much cash.
Yeah.
Without him figuring it out.
Yeah.
And so she's like, do I have stuff I can pawn? But like, what if someone recognizes my mark and then my husband's going to know? And like, what do I do? And as she's trying to figure this out, her husband comes in and sees the letter.
Okay.
You know, what's this? And she tears it up, but not before he can see that it's from Laxton. And so she decides to play a trick.
Okay.
And she tells her husband, Mrs. Gallipot, tells Mr. Gallipot that she and Laxton were betrothed a long time ago.
Okay.
Which would mean that they are legally bound to one another.
Oh.
And that she had been told that he died away at war.
Okay.
And that she unwittingly, unknowingly married Mr. Gallipot. Which is a huge problem.
Bigamy.
Because that's essentially bigamy.
Yeah.
And
little big of you, little big
now he's a little bigamous.
Yeah. Bigopotamus.
And now Laxton is threatening to take her away from Mr. Gallipot through legal action.
Yes.
And Mr. Gallipot is like,
oh no.
No. Oh. My baby.
He's like, oh, that sucks.
And he runs through all of these like, well, we can tell.
Maybe we could just talk to him.
He starts out being like, well, surely he wouldn't want you now.
Oh.
We're already married. We have kids.
Yeah.
I've already had sex with you.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, no, he says he wants me anyway. And then he's like, well, what if we told everyone that I caught you having sex with one of the servants?
These are really good ideas, babe. But love the energy. That's there's a few reasons that's not going to work though.
And she basically her response is that verbatim.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think we could get him to leave if we give him money. We'll just pay him off. If we give him 30 pounds,
yes,
I think he'll leave us alone.
Sure.
And Mr. Gallipot's kind of cute. He's basically like, of course, anything.
Yeah.
I'll pay anything.
Yeah.
Because I love you so much.
She's like, ugh.
Pretty much.
Whatever. Give me the money.
Eventually, Laxton shows up and Mrs. Gallipot
He's a little stabbed.
is like, I told my husband about your letter. And he's like, what?
Why would you do that?
I told him about our betrothal. And he's like, what?
I don't know what you're talking about.
What a pox means this riddling? It takes him a minute. He's very confused, but he eventually figures out.
Is the husband like standing right there?
Yeah, the husband
Oh, okay.
is part of this conversation,
Yeah.
and Laxton's kind of trying to catch up in real time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you decide for yourself if you would be flattered or annoyed if your husband said this.
Okay.
I married her, have lain with her, and got 2 children on her body. Think but on that. Have you so beggarly an appetite, when I upon a dainty dish have fed, to dine upon my scraps? Would you not scorn to wear my clothes, sir? Then pray, sir, wear not her, for she's a garment so fitting for my body, I'm loath another should put it on.
I'd be so flattered. I'd be like, aw, babe, it's so sweet.
Yeah, she's thrilled, I'm sure.
Just a little scrap.
Mm-hmm. Just your little...
I'm not a whole meal. I'm just a scrap.
I'm just a scrap. I'm just an outfit.
Yeah.
Just a dirty shirt.
Uh-huh.
Thanks.
Thanks, babe.
But Laxton gets his money,
Yeah.
and Mr. Gallipot leaves, and Mrs. Gallipot is like, you impressed? And Laxton's basically like, women are liars. Women are lying liars who are full of deceit.
What is happening today?
Honestly,
This is the worst day.
I was so focused on like translation and annotation that I didn't even think about the fact that, yeah, this is just one big confusing day for Laxton.
Yeah. Like, I thought I was going to get sex, then I just got stabbed. I thought I was going to get some money, and I did get the money, but now I'm like really confused.
And this returns us to the main plot,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
Which is Sir Alexander and Trapdoor
Right. I'm surprised every time you say that name.
are scheming together.
Sounds like a raccoon's name.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It just sounds like one of the raccoons on Bob's Burgers,
Yeah.
like Lil King Trashmouth and Trapdoor.
Trapdoor. Yeah.
So they're scheming to get Moll arrested and executed
Mm-hmm.
because Sir Alexander's a dick.
Yes.
Sir Alexander's older gentleman bros show up,
Right.
and we find out that they are also having problems with their respective sons.
No.
No. Sir Davy Dapper, who is fed up with
Father of Jack Dapper.
father of Jack Dapper,
Right.
is so fed up with his son's poor money management that he's going to have him arrested
Oh.
and put into debtor's prison.
That's a little drastic, Dad. And Daddy, no.
And he more or less is, he says that it will be the equivalent of a university education for his son
School of Hard Knocks.
to figure out how to scrape by in debtor's prison without any external assistance.
Yeah.
And the thing about debtor's prison that it's easy to forget is that they charge you money to be in debtor's prison.
Oh. But I thought you were paying off your debt.
No,
Oh.
it costs more money to be in debtor's prison.
Oh.
Yeah, it was basically like a giant blackmail of sorts. And
Well, how?
and however much money you managed to get together also controlled how well you were treated.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so they have this whole conversation that's basically talking about the education that Jack Dapper is going to get when his father has him falsely imprisoned. Because keeping in mind his father is having him falsely imprisoned, he's just making up a debt
Yeah.
and saying his son defaulted on it.
Yeah.
Using a false name.
So how does one get out of debtor's prison?
I think
To
usually
have rich friends or something?
Yeah, you have people on the outside working with your assets and things to try and get the money together on your behalf. This is also a good time to bring up that it costs money to be in prison now.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people leave prison in debt.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's very expensive to go to court.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They charge you every day that you are in prison.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's a good thing things are so much better than in the
Yeah.
Jacobean era.
Good thing we're talking about 400 years ago.
Yeah. So Sir Davy has entered this false debt on the books, and he summons 2 watchmen to go arrest his son.
Dad.
Their names are
Oh boy, what are their names?
Sergeant Curtilax and Yeoman Hanger.
Curtilax sounds like a medication. And Yeoman Hanger, I mean, sure.
Right. I
Yeah.
think
It sounds
Curtilax
like an indie band.
is a weapon.
It does sound like a laxative, though.
Let's see. It does. Yeah, a Curtilax is a cutlass. So he's Sergeant Sword.
Sergeant Sword. Yeoman Hanger is a folk band.
Yeah.
Okay.
They get to do a nice little bit of a dunk on Sir Davy Dapper because he's pretending to be someone else, because even then it would look bad to have your own son
Yeah.
arrested on a false debt. And so he's pretending to be somebody else.
So he puts on a different hat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He puts on a different hat, and
Yeah.
suddenly his own children don't recognize him.
Uh-huh.
And he's talking to the two sergeants, and he's like, do you know Sir Jack Dapper? Or do you know Jack Dapper, son of Sir Davy Dapper? And they're like, we know Davy Dapper. He's a monster.
Oh my God.
They say, unfortunately, they make a comment about the Jewish people catch a stray in their first comment. And then they say, if he were sure his father's skin would yield him any money, he would, when he dies, flay it off and sell it to cover drums for children at Bartholomew Fair.
What does the drums for children at Bartholomew Fair part mean?
I think he would sell his father's skin to be made into musical instruments.
Yeah.
If he thought it were worth it.
Yeah.
And because he's pretending to be someone else, he has to be like,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah, that guy sucks.
yeah, what boo.
Nobody likes him.
Boo that guy. Anyway, go arrest my son.
His son.
That guy's son.
Yeah.
Go arrest the son that's definitely not mine.
Yeah.
They charge off. Moll appears. And the staging of this is all very fluid, I think. So basically, like, Sir Davy leaves, the sergeants stay on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Moll and Trapdoor appear. They're making some dick jokes.
Okay.
Jack Dapper appears.
Yeah.
And Moll puts together at the last minute
I was like, oh no.
what's happening.
My friend.
So the sergeants have hidden themselves.
Yeah.
And she can see that they're hiding, doesn't know why at first. She figures out that they are about to try and catch Jack.
Bestie, no.
She's like, buddy, run.
Yeah.
She sees the sergeants and she's basically like a cab.
Hot.
I don't like cops. And I am going to spoil their hunt because it entertains me. And then she figures out that they're after her friend. And she's like, even better.
Yeah.
And so she and Trapdoor detain the sergeants at sword point as
Noise.
Jack legs it.
Yeah.
And they...
Noise.
And again, the moral of the story with her is kind of ACAB, because she says, I'm glad I have done perfect one good work today. If any gentleman be in Scrivener's bands, send but for Moll. She'll bail him by these hands.
Love that.
Right?
Love it.
She's the best.
Yeah.
And then I think this will be the pivotal scene where we leave off for today.
Okie dokie.
There's just so much to say.
Yeah. It's dense.
It is. But we open on Sir Alexander and Trapdoor.
Trapdoor's very busy.
He's very busy.
Yeah.
In Sir Alexander's house.
Okay.
And they are laying a trap for Moll.
Door. Okay. Got it.
And what they're doing is basically just covering a room in small, expensive, thievable items.
So, wait, but this is the first time in the play, I feel like, that we've heard that Moll is a thief.
Well, her name is Cutpurse.
That's true. But I feel like people haven't brought up the fact that she's a thief yet.
I mean, she just kind of gets accused of all kinds of shit.
Okay.
And so they're just...
But since that's her name, the audience is supposed to take that like, yeah, she does steal shit.
Yeah, well, and Sir Alexander is...
She began do crime.
Yes, and Sir Alexander is just convinced that she's...
The worst.
The worst.
Yeah.
She's just a monster.
Yeah.
She has testicles.
Takes one to no one.
She steals things.
Alex.
So he and Trapdoor are just sort of putting...
She won't be able to resist.
It's
this
like...
small, shiny object.
Yes. Very magpie-like.
Yeah.
It's like a gold watch.
Yeah.
Like a chain with a diamond on it. It's like...
Under a box held up by a stick attached to a string.
Almost. Yeah. It's pretty much that. They just like cover it in little things. And then he sneaks away. And Sebastian, Mary Fitzallard...
The first Mary.
The first Mary.
Yeah.
Who is dressed as a page.
Sure.
And Moll all
Ooh.
come on the scene.
Just three bros.
And they are talking about
Their plan.
the plan.
Yeah.
So she's on board. She's doing it.
Yeah.
She is
She's
committed.
like, why didn't you just say that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Friend?
Sebastian kisses Mary,
Uh-huh.
who's dressed as a page, remember?
Uh-huh.
And we get this little exchange where Moll says, "How strange this shows, one man to kiss another." And Sebastian says, "I'd kiss such men to choose, Moll. Methinks a woman's lip tastes well in a doublet."
So, wait. What are they saying?
Sebastian kisses Mary, who's dressed as a boy.
Right.
And she's like, and Moll makes a joke about seeing
It's
two
like-
men kissing each other.
Yeah.
And he basically says, "I think
I think it's hot.
a woman's kiss tastes better when she's dressed as a man."
Yeah. And Moll's like, I agree.
And then he goes on to wax rhapsodic. He says,
I thought the whack was going to go in a different direction. I was like, right there on the stage?
he says, "I speak seriously. As some have a conceit their drink tastes better in an outlandish cup than in our own, so methinks every kiss she gives me now in this strange form is worth a pair of two."
Mm.
He's like, this is so hot.
Yeah. I like this.
He's like, I am so turned on.
Yeah. And Alexander and Trapdoor at this point have left.
They
they're
have
not-
left.
They're not like watching secretly.
No, they are
Okay.
not watching secretly yet.
Okay.
Alexander spends a lot of this play just sneaking onto the stage.
Yeah.
Just being like, I'm not here.
Yeah.
And then they talk about the fact that Moll is a very talented musician.
Oh.
And
What do you know?
She does a little song and dance. Like, literally, she starts playing a song.
That's lovely.
Yeah. And while she's singing, Sir Alexander
Descends from the ceiling,
pretty much.
crawling upside down on the walls.
And he's watching her as she, like, you know, she plays and sings for a while, and then she hangs the instrument up, and she's like, "A watch, what time is it?" And Alexander's
He's
like,
ha ha!
"Ha ha!" And all she does is check the time and put the watch down, and he's like, "No!"
Mm.
And then she sees the sort of other,
Yeah.
and she's kind of like, this is a weird amount of,
This is a strangely decorated room.
pretty much. She says, "What, a loose change and a dangling diamond? Here were a brave booty for an evening thief. There's many a younger brother would be glad to look twice in at a window for it, and wriggle in and out like an eel in a sandbag."
Mm.
And what she's saying
She's
is...
like, wow, they better put some of the shit away. Somebody's going to take it.
That's exactly what she's saying. But what she's specifically saying is they better put some of this shit away, or someone's second son, like a nobleman,
Oh.
someone's second son is gonna take it,
Yeah.
because there's this whole thing about like second sons are kind of notoriously thievy
Yeah.
because they're not gonna inherit anything, and so they sort of have to live by their wits.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so she's like, one of your rich bros is gonna steal this shit if you don't put it away.
Yeah.
And then she says, "Oh, if men's secret youthful faults could judge them, it would be the most general execution that was ever seen in England." Basically, if all of these young rich dudes, especially the second sons, actually got in trouble for the things that they did, it would be the biggest execution this country had
Yeah.
ever seen.
They'd all hang.
Which is great, because she's basically being like, you know who the real thieves are?
Yeah.
Rich people.
She grows closer to my heart in every scene.
The annotation I have written there is just rich dudes be stealing.
Yeah. White collar crime.
Yeah. And so Sir Alexander sort of admits that he's on stage.
He's like,
Yeah. And he seems to pretend not to recognize her. It's a little confusing, but Sebastian pretends that Moll is giving him musical instruction.
mm-hmm.
He's like, "Oh," and
Oh, my love.
speaks to Moll as if, like, in using male pronouns.
Oh.
So when Sir Alexander shows up, Sebastian is like, "Sir, let me pay you for my music lesson.
Yeah.
I this is what I owe you, and I'll pay you more when my father gives me my allowance." There's some back and forth. There's some more dick jokes about Prick Song, which
Okay.
is a song that's pricked out on a stringed instrument,
Ah.
but also is using the double entendre of prick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Penis.
Sir Alexander's like, yeah, I bet this is your music teacher. I bet you're learning some songs.
Yeah.
There's
Boys will
jokes
be
about
boys.
instruments going between legs. You get it.
Sure.
But Sir Alexander turns to the audience and is like, I have these coins. And what it is, this is very quick. There was a huge problem in England for kind of ever. As long as currency was made out of actual gold and silver,
Uh-huh.
you were not allowed to punch holes in currency or like file bits off of it, or it didn't count as currency anymore because currency was measured by weight.
Okay.
And so he's got 4 gold coins that have been damaged enough that they are no longer legal tender.
Okay.
And he's like, here, good music teacher, here's the rest of your payment.
But he says he doesn't know it's Mal.
He does.
Oh, okay.
He does, but
Okay.
he's pretending
Playing
not to.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says, here are 4 angels marked with holes in them, fit for his cracked companions. And to the audience. So he's like, look, I have this
Worthless.
worthless currency.
Yeah.
And insists on paying Moll with it, or giving it to Sebastian and being like, pay
Pay the man.
the man.
Yeah.
And he is trusting that Moll is too greedy to not spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so this feels, I don't know, without all of the cultural context and then having to stop and provide the cultural context,
Yeah.
this is kind of like, but this is meant to be, I'm pretty sure, kind of the, like,
Yeah.
oh no,
Yeah.
he's got her now.
Yeah.
She's going to be in trouble.
Because she's not going to notice that the coins are damaged.
I think this is one of those things that's just really hard to translate across history. I think the idea is that he thinks she would be too greedy, and we, the audience, are meant to be anxious because if you are not a rich person, maybe you need to spend your f***ed up gold coins.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we're supposed to be anxious about this.
There's
I'm pretty
something with the money.
is bad.
Yeah. Okay.
We think he definitely thinks he's got her now, and I
Yeah.
think we're supposed to be like a little, as anxious as you get in the middle of a rom-com, which is middlingly.
I get anxious. I don't care if I don't even like the movie. I'm always like, oh no, how are they gonna get out of this?
And so I think
I'm easily manipulated.
I mean, well, that's a good rom-com should make you anxious.
Yeah.
Just not, not as anxious as a tragedy, maybe. But that's
Joke's on you. I'm anxious all the time.
It's fair enough. But that's where we're gonna leave the play for today.
All right. He's trapping her.
Yeah, she's been entrapped. But before we break off, as of right now, any questions, any context you're curious about?
So, I mean, I'm just very surprised by the just open gender bendiness of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even questioned that everyone thinks Mal is hot as fuck and everyone thinks women wearing men's clothes is hot as fuck and like...
That was the thing that surprised me the most about it, too. I did not expect it to be such an unspoken assumption that just like, yeah, it's a real turn on
Yeah.
when women wear men's clothes. Full stop. No contradiction. And we can dive into this more next episode, but this play comes out at sort of the ramping up of what turns into a genuine moral panic about women wearing men's clothes.
But not men wearing women's clothes?
No.
Okay.
For various reasons. And specifically, like, there are a lot of issues with it in terms of like what they were worried about.
Mm-hmm.
But what's very funny is even reading pamphlets that are talking about how terrible this is and how it's turning women into men is one of the complaints. Like, essentially, you're making yourself into a man in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Even in the pamphlets, there's very much this tone of like, look, no one's denying that it's hot.
We all know it's fucking sexy. All right? But society needs to be able to function.
Because this is what they do now, right? Like when we start to have moral panics about especially how young women are dressing, one of the things that conservatives will always try and do is essentially claim that it's not attractive. They'll be like, no, it doesn't actually look good, right? They'll be like, you look bad. It's a turn off. No one's actually into that. It's more attractive when women dress modestly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's disingenuous, but they will try it.
Yeah. Well, I don't mean to derail your point, but on the flip side, they also at the same time claim that it's too attractive and that men and boys can't be expected to contain themselves.
Yes.
Around
No,
it.
absolutely. Yeah. They try to have it both ways.
Yeah.
That is also a huge part of it. But that's more for policing women within the fold. Mm-hmm. And when they're talking about women who are...
Gotcha.
They'll always kind of try and be like, no one actually thinks that's attractive, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you seen that kind of rhetoric or that angle where they'll be like, men don't actually want that.
Yeah.
They want a chaste trad wife or whatever.
Meh.
And so it's really funny to me that they don't even try that. Like, they're not even bothering with that rhetoric.
Yeah.
They're like, look, we all know it's a turn off. But you shouldn't do it.
Objective fact.
But the cross-dressing debate was a big deal. Like, King James himself ultimately weighed in about 1620, had the Archbishop of London summon all the church leaders and was like, you need to tell all these women to knock it the fuck off.
Was it just like trendy?
It was yeah.
Yeah.
It was when this comes out, so 1611, when Moll Cutpurse when Mary Frith is running around London,
yeah,
obviously she stands out because she stands out enough that we're aware of her. We have records of her. We know that this was a thing.
Right.
It just became very fashionable for many reasons for women to dress in men's clothes and to carry like a knife or a sword.
God, I love that.
And people hated it.
Yeah.
They lost their fucking minds to the point where King James essentially told the church to issue a series of sermons, not just telling women to knock it off, but threatening their husbands and brothers and fathers with legal action if they didn't get their women under control.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
why do they care?
Well, and so one of the things that we can see even in the first half is that there's a lot of class stuff happening in this, right?
Yeah.
So Mary is straddling worlds. She's
the first Mary.
Yeah, sorry. Moll.
Oh,
Moll the character. She's straddling different worlds, right? She's friends with these rich guys.
Yeah.
She's friends with the merchants. And we find out a little bit later in the second half that she is also thoroughly acquainted with the underworld, right? She has at some point been a thief.
So hot.
And one of the problems, one of the things that was really stressing people out in Jacobean England with all of this cross-dressing was that it erased class distinctions. The women who were all wearing men's clothes were all kind of doing it in the same way. And one of the functions of a woman in this era was to serve as a sort of living billboard for her husband's wealth.
Okay.
Even though men's clothing then was significantly more elaborate than it is now, it was not as widely distinguished as women's clothing was. It was much easier to showcase wealth with women's fashions.
Yeah.
And so men essentially relied on their wives
to parade around and be like, look at how nice I can dress her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, your dressing your wife was part of how you showed other men how successful you were.
God, that is so exhausting.
And so when women started dressing as men, when they started wearing men's clothes, again, one of the things that they complain about in the pamphlets is that it at a glance you could no longer distinguish where a woman belonged in the social pecking order. And this was a huge problem.
And this is only a problem for like rich people.
It was a problem for everybody.
Everybody.
But it freaked out the rich people.
Yeah.
I don't think the middle and lower classes were as distressed.
Yeah.
But also, as I mentioned, sex workers very often dressed as men.
You did say that. Yeah.
Because
It's so hot.
it's so hot.
Yeah.
And so part of the issue, too, is like, how can I tell if this woman is a real person or if she's a sex worker at a glance?
Yeah.
Because it's very important to be able to categorize sex workers at a glance because we need to be able to treat them horribly.
This is like a huge threat to the entire social order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. And so all of these anxieties are kind of being bundled up into this character
Yeah.
of Moll because she is mistaken as a sex worker, but she's actually a virgin, essentially, like,
Mhm.
well,
I wish I could translate your facial expression right now. You're like the smirk emoji.
in my mind, canonically, she has a strap on and she might never have had sex with a man,
Yeah.
but
She's walking around with a soft pack.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so people keep accusing her of being a sex worker, but she's actually chaste. People keep accusing her of being a thief, but she's actually honest.
Yeah.
Really, the only thing that distinguishes her from all of these other people is that she's dressed as a dude.
Yeah. I originally thought that this was going to be like a character assassination of one lady who the two playwrights like hated. But this is so cool, honestly, to like have a play written about this. I mean, unless of course in the second act, I suppose she could do something horrible, but I don't think that she will. I think she is uncomplicatedly the hero.
Well, and it's gonna, we'll
Of course.
we'll find out
No spoilsies.
next episode. But there's a very fun and exciting little twist at the end.
Ooh.
But until then, it's time to let you and our listeners go.
No. Okay.
We'll have to find out the thrilling conclusion of The Roaring Girl. And we will learn some more about the real Mary Frith. And we will talk a little bit more about the transvestism panic of
Forever.
of
Of Earth.
of all of all
Sorry,
the time.
Western society.
Yeah.
Europe.
Alas. Well, babe,
Hey,
thanks so much for being here.
thank you for telling me half of the story.
I'm so excited to tell you the second half.
Yeah.
And in the meanwhile, do you have any, I don't know, is there anything you want to plug?
I would like Mal to plug me. Moll.
Fine by me.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, God. Really quick, I just want to say, I know that you are a much more fully realized person than I am, and therefore spend much less time on
Me?
social media than I do. But did you know that NaNoWriMo is like an actual organization?
I don't know what that word is.
National Novel Writing Month.
Oh, yeah. Where you do you try to write a certain number of pages or words or something.
You try to write a novel in a month.
Sounds like an anime character.
Well, they have like or NaNoWriMo, I guess, is
Yeah.
probably how they, I don't know.
Eh.
I've never heard anyone
It's
say
an
it out
online
loud.
thing. Yeah.
But like, it's an actual organization, which
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I thought it was just like a fun challenge.
Yeah.
They came out in like full-throated support of
Don't say it.
AI writing.
What?
Uh-huh. And
what?
And
What? I am not often actually surprised, but I am actually surprised.
yeah, guess what kind of a company is sponsoring them now?
I can't think of anything. My mind goes nowhere. This is so darkly funny.
It's pretty bad.
That is wild.
Yeah. And so this feels like as good a time as any, because I'm not sure if I've done it, to say that I and this podcast are vehemently opposed to ChatGPT, ChatGPT, being used for any kind of creative writing pursuit. Creative writing is meant to be done by humans. It is what makes us human. It is very important to me. And AI writing of any kind is not only a travesty, but plagiarism. It's just plagiarism. It's all one big plagiarism machine.
Yeah, that like destroys the environment with every keystroke. They're massive
Yeah.
data farms and server facilities and everything.
Yeah. So I wanted to...
That is wild. Sorry, I can't get over it. National Nonfiction Writing Month. endorses.
Just like national novel, like
novel.
but like really? Her?
How? What do they expect? I want you to write the worst thing you've ever written and submit it, or just be like, here we go.
Well, and now so apparently they have. I didn't know this, but like the website, like you sign up and you're supposed to like feed your writing into it.
Of course you are.
And it like keeps track of how much you've written it. And so a bunch of people were like, are they going to just feed that into an AI?
Of course they are.
Yeah. So I wanted to say, dear listeners, I was already going to let you know that I have some very fun Didn't Read It bookmarks.
Yes.
And if you DM me on Instagram, I will mail them to you. I will mail a couple of them to you for free.
Yes.
But I'm using this juncture to let you know that I also, because I'm a weirdo, made some mildly unhinged anti-AI bookmarks.
Yeah, they're good.
That I will be posting on our Instagram as well. And if you would like some of those, they are not advertising the podcast. They don't have my name or the show's name anywhere on them. They just talk about how bad AI writing is.
Yeah.
And if that interests you, shoot me a DM and I will mail them to you.
Do it.
So yeah, that's
Wild.
just a quick detour to say f- that shit.
Bananas.
And that's I think that's everything for today.
That feels like a joke. Okay. Yeah. It feels like a prank. Okay. Yes. Hello.
It does feel
It feels like a prank. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We'll be back soon with more Roaring Girl. And as always, if you can, this week, this month, this pay period, consider supporting a living author who did not use AI to write their books because they could really use the love. Bye.
Goodbye.
Didn't Read It was created, written, recorded, and edited by me, Grace Todd. You can follow the show on Instagram or Twitter at Didn't Read It.
Our theme song is Books, written, performed, and recorded by William Albritton.
For sources cited and a full list of episodes, you can visit us at didntreaditpod.com.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review. It makes a big difference and we appreciate it immensely.
If you did not enjoy the show, we are accepting applications for a full-time nemesis at didntreaditpod@gmail.com. Special thanks to Black Iris Social Club in Richmond, Virginia, and to Pesca Trio Publishing.